Well, hello, everybody. It is Mark. As a matter of fact, I have come to the Corral Call without a hat on, which is probably shocking to most people that have seen or participated in the Corral Call in the past. Dr. J, I looked in the mirror and I was like, you know what? I can pass that hair for the Corral Call today. So we're just going to go no hat. And it's a monumental moment in the life of SheepFeast.
Monumental indeed. I expect that the waters will part and the heavens will open because this is something amazing. So I
Right.
don't see you without a hat most times.
Yeah, and it's still here, so it'll be back. So it's good to be here. We're coming off of a Thanksgiving week where we've been spending a lot of time just being grateful for all that God has done this year, and we've had so many amazing guests throughout the year, and just a lot of great conversations. And today is going to be no different. We're really honored and blessed to have Jeshua Lauka with us today. How are you doing, Jeshua?
Great. Yeah, really glad to be here. Thanks, Mark. Dr. J, it's great to join you in this group.
Yeah, so we were just discussing before we came on live that we had somewhat met. We'd been in the same Zoom room via Gerald Duran's group called Startup Church, which is another great place to get resourced and in the kingdom business space. And I think both of us, it's been a while since we've been to one of his. But yeah, so shout out to Gerald and all that he's doing. If you go on those calls and Joshua happens to be there, don't be surprised if Gerald doesn't ask him to say something because he's full of good information, which we're going to find about today. So, Joshua, where are you at, by the way? We didn't do the usual like, oh, it's raining here, it's snowing wherever you are. So, where are you?
Yeah, I am in downtown Grand Rapids, Michigan, where yes, we have lots of snow. So yeah, winter is here. And downtown, you might hear a siren behind me, but we usually don't have too many of those.
Oh, yeah, good, good. So, yeah, I saw actually earlier this. I guess it would have been still fall, right? Because we haven't hit the real winter season yet. But supposedly we're gonna have a lot more snow this winter, maybe on the East Coast. We'll see if we can get to Grand Rapids level or not. But so, what are you doing out in Grand Rapids? Give the people a little bit of a snapshot of what your world is like in the business realm.
Sure. So, business and personal, married to my wife Annie for 21 years, have four kids, 19 down to 12, and I'm a partner and owner in a boutique business law firm. I spend about half my time working on the business these days, which I'll probably talk about a little bit later, going through some transitions, talk about leading in the workplace, what we talk about. And then the other half of my time is spent as essentially a fractional general counsel for faith-driven and purpose-driven companies, anywhere from early stage venture backed up to more mature companies, even some venture backed, some private equity, growth stage equity. So all in that type of general counsel framework, though, is where I spend a lot of my time practicing law.
Wonderful. And so what led you down that path? Actually, I believe you got your degree at Regent University. Am I right on that? Did I remember correctly?
I did, yes. Regent drew me because it's one of the few law schools in the country that teach law from a Christian worldview perspective, and their tagline, "Christian leadership to change the world," really drew me in because, as we'll get into, it was this draw of work being vocation, being a calling, and not just something you do. Really drew me in.
Yeah, 100%. And Joshua, I don't know if you know this, but I live in Virginia Beach and both of my older daughters go to Regent. So we're big fans
I had
of
no
Regent as
idea.
well. Yeah, so
Wow.
we're right
Nice.
here. So I've known a few people that have also gone through the law program, friends of mine. So yeah,
Mhm.
definitely an amazing program. So if you're out there and you're thinking getting into law and you want to have the right kind of framework and belief system, Regent is a good place to go.
Yep.
For sure, for sure. So it was law something that you identified kind of early in life, or is that some people that grow up, their parents are all like, you either become a doctor or a lawyer or something, and or was that just something that happened naturally over time?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I've been asked that particular question before, and it's kind of the answer that a lot of people don't expect. Meaning, yes, I became a lawyer in a lot of respects due to my upbringing. When I heard a lot of my class members, oftentimes you hear people saying, "I became a lawyer because people always told me I like to argue, or I was good at arguing, or something like that." Um, but no, the my story of how I ended up on that journey really goes back to my earliest memories as a child, and really growing up in a not so functional, chaotic household.
Wow, wow. That's interesting to hear that. I thought maybe you just watched a lot of Matlock like I did when I was a kid. Not the new one. I haven't watched that one, but good old yeah, the original Matlock. That's the way to
No,
go.
it's these days it's Suits. People, watching Suits. So I
Yeah.
occasionally watch Suits, but yeah, it's not much like my real life. But
Yeah, that's what I was, along those lines, someone was talking about, oh, actually somebody at my church, and a police officer, and he was talking about the different pathways you could have in that career. And he's like, you know, being a detective on is not the same as TV. It's a lot of paperwork. You're not doing all this exciting stuff, chasing criminals and all that. So I'm sure like there's a bazillion different law related TV shows, and sounds like it's the same thing. It doesn't reflect real life work, but so you're doing some real work though with a kingdom focus. And was that something that you went into? Was like this is what I want to do, or did God kind of open those doors as far as like helping businesses and getting people started in the right way?
yeah, it was really God infusing into me a purpose, knowing at an early age. So when I encountered Christ at the age of 15, really God changed the trajectory of my life. And going into high school as a new believer in Jesus, I quickly identified a couple of different things that I knew to be true about me. Number one, I loved learning. I love particularly reading, even though growing up in a household where that wasn't something that was valued. My parents were high school dropouts, and it just going into school at the youngest age, I didn't know how to read. Didn't I was raised by HBO as a young kid, essentially. But when I did start going to school and realizing, oh, I like reading and I'm good at it, I like learning, and then ultimately realizing that I wanted to continue the learning process and I was passionate about justice, particularly for justice for people who were vulnerable, because that was a part of my experience as a kid. So I knew that I wanted to go into a justice related field, and that meant I was going to go to law school. Didn't know how I was going to get there, but I knew that I was going to go to law school. And originally, uh, going into Regent, I thought that would look either one of two ways. Number one, working for some international nonprofit like International Justice Mission, or joining the FBI. I applied to the FBI, and neither one of those. It ultimately ended up where I came back to my home state of Michigan, working in a firm, a private practice law firm that provided a lot of opportunity to give back and serve on boards of local nonprofits and do legal work for businesses and not-for-profits, that really fed that passion of mine. So it was a pathway over time that God has really led me um, since I was 15.
That's amazing. So diving into that a little bit, you said, you met Jesus at 15. What was that story? Was that a friend inviting you, or how were you exposed to the gospel? I'd love to hear about that.
Yeah, so prior to those years, so talk about early years, life, like I said, was chaotic. Mom and dad, and dad was not really around. Mom was, I love my mom. Mom passed away about 4 years ago, and she did the best she could, but she made a lot of poor choices, and that meant that me and my four other siblings were just exposed to a lot of things that were not great, and that left us, moving around a lot and in some very chaotic upbringing. So, grown in a household of abuse, trauma, neglect, and ultimately it led to, I think there was an inflection point of when I was, I'll say 14, when things were so chaotic and mom didn't really have a safety net and she didn't know what else to do. And I remember her telling me, I'm going to take you kids to church. She didn't know what else to do, and religion wasn't a part of our life. And to me, up to that point, religion really didn't seem like it had any value. I would probably have called myself at that time an agnostic. I thought there had to be a God that created anything. I think it took more faith to believe that everything was created by nothing than to think there must have been an intelligent creator. So I just didn't think that there was a God that cared to be involved in people's life. I thought that you couldn't really know that God. So it was I was around the age of 14, and mom took me and my four siblings to a church in the inner city of Saginaw where we were living at. And it was the type of place where the neighborhood, you're not comfortable being there outside of your car, particularly at night. It was not a great neighborhood. I remember it was a Thursday night the first time my mom took us there, and I felt very uncomfortable, very unsafe. But went into the church, and it it was not an experience that I look back that first time and very fondly. I thought I was confused. I just didn't get why people would. Why do they care about organized religion? Why, if I go in here, why are people, singing songs and talking about an old book that I felt was irrelevant? I didn't get it. But thankful for my mom, she kept making us show up, and eventually I heard the pastor talk about Jesus, and Jesus intrigued me. And so, sitting in the pews, I had nothing else to do. So I opened the Bible in front of me and went to the part that talked about Jesus. I went to the book of John, I remember, and in there encountered the God of the universe who came down from heaven to be with people like me. I was a nobody from a family of nobodies, and that's who Jesus spent his time with. That's who God came down to be with and to die for. And so I eventually was facing this proposition in my mind. If there was a God, and I believed that there was a God, and if that God loved me so much that he came down from heaven to be with me, to die for me, to take away my sin so that I could be with him now and then forever, that was the most amazing reality. And that God deserved my everything. And so at 15, I surrendered my life to Jesus, and God radically changed the trajectory of my life.
And I love that, Joshua. It's so cool to hear people's stories of how God intervenes and changes, just like you said, trajectories and destinies. And that's what it's all about. So I love that. Thanks for sharing your story of meeting the Lord. So that propelled you forward. Like you said, you're making different choices now, and it leads you into the law career. And then you like you said, you started at a local firm, but at some point you co-founded your own practice, correct? And how did that come about? And what led you to take that particular journey?
So it was about, so I moved from my first firm that I was at, and for the last 14 years in Grand Rapids, a law firm that was established by a couple of partners. One's been practicing law for about 40 years, and aligned values wise, aligned faith wise, boutique business law firm, good guys that eventually so became my partners. And I came to this season in life where about 5 years ago, where I was feeling uncomfortable in the sense that when you do good work, thankfully you're rewarded with more good work. I mean, and so I was at a point where I was drowning in legal work, meaning I was having to send away good clients because I didn't have capacity to do them, to work with them, and team members. We were attracting other lawyers that knew who we were, what we stood for, and I ultimately got to a point in life where I was meeting with a mentor about 2 years ago, and that mentor, you ever have people in your life that when you meet with them, it's kind of like God has a word for you. So every time I meet with his mentor, God convicted me, had a word for me. And this mentor was just listening to me, kind of complain a little bit about, I'm just drowning in work, and we have these opportunities to grow, and we're in our firm keeps on saying no. And then he just convicted me to say, why, if God keeps on bringing you team members, people that are attracted to you, that in clients, why would you not be a good steward of what God is bringing those to you? Why not try and steward those well? And so that kind of pivoted a couple of years ago, my mindset of, I think for me, I always had this turn off of the word ambition. I thought, oh, I don't have some great ambition. I think probably it was selfish ambition, do nothing out of selfish ambition or being conceit. That was it. But when I was able to pivot that, no, I'm ambitious for Christ and his kingdom, and just being a good steward for that. That pivot allowed me to go down this path of really, it was a year ago where I had this conversation with my then partners to say, here is the conviction that I have. It's twofold that God has drawn me to, is to enter into a season where we create, I can go found this law firm that can scale, that can be a good steward, all the team members that want to work with us, and all the clients we have capacity to do that, and to create something that is overtly centered on its mission, vision, values of Jesus Christ. That's its why. And so that would mean creating something new that doesn't have my name attached to it, like it, David Werniger Lauka, the law firm that's traditionally been my name associated with it, but it has a different name that just reflects our core why. And so that was a year ago. And what that ultimately has resulted in January, a public launching of a new law firm with other lawyers, another law firm, different partners that will be out there in the world, that I'll have a public launch in January that I'm just starting to leak out to our clients this month, that exists the same type of practice areas, but a very clear and overt why we exist, to put a spotlight on Jesus for the world to see, to love God and love people. That's it. And to draw and to be there for whoever wants to come join us in that journey.
Man, that's awesome. We're right here. We're getting breaking news, folks, coming
It's
in
true. Yeah.
January.
Yes.
So are you releasing like the new name and all that at that point?
I am. Yes. It's
Awesome.
still under wraps. Yes. But,
Oh, cool.
the next couple of, in less than a month or so. Yeah.
Yeah, there we go. Got a great teaser here, guys. So stay tuned to Jeshua
Mhm.
Lauka. You can find him on LinkedIn. We'll talk more about that, how people can connect with you as we kind of wrap up later. All right, so
Mhm.
that's exciting. We're excited to hear about what God's going to be doing through that. And honestly, it sounds like I was having a conversation with Jay earlier this week. We might have somebody to send to you before too long. We'll have a conversation with him first, but so there's a lot of people that need that kind of service wisdom, not only from the legal side, but paired with the knowledge and understanding and Spirit of God. That's huge. That you guys are providing that in the legal space. So thank you for what you're doing there, Dr. J. Throw it to you.
Yeah, amazing story, and there's so many nuggets to pick out of that, and I wonder how many individuals, Jeshua, have been in your situation, or that are in your shoes now, where God may be speaking to them in the fact that they're the go-to person, or now they're being bombarded with all of these extra things. It could be work or what have you, and God is calling them to step out. And I think having a mentor is very important. We hear about that all the time. I would just love, just if you could speak a little bit more to that. How did you even get connected with this mentor, and how valuable has it been for you, someone to be able to speak and say, "Hey, all this stuff is happening that you're complaining about. Could it be, you know what I mean?" And give you that thought point to allow you to even be able to pivot. Could you, speak a little bit more to that?
Oh, wow. That's crucial. Yes, great topic. And it applies to so many different spheres of our life. And so, I go back to even think of, part of my own story is, navigating life without a father figure. My dad ended up dying from his heroin addiction when I was 20, but he was never around then. And all the men in my life were not people that I would want to emulate. And so even, going into even getting married, I'm thankfully, in college I met my wife, and she had a 180-degree different background than I did. Grew up, in Christian education, in the church, in a good, not perfect family. No one's family's perfect, but a good family. And even when I knew that she was the one that got ahead for me, I was scared to death to propose to her because I lacked the tools in my mind. It was, it's John Eldredge has many good books, but one of those books called Fathered by God, he tells that, man, a lot of us walk through life, as unfinished men, and we just are looking for somebody to answer this question for us. Do I have what it takes? And so, I could see those markers in my life of, do I have what it takes to do that next thing? And so even in college, having a mentor that was an elder at the church, that was a professor, that also, his father was an alcoholic, and so he could speak directly into my life and tell me, hey, look out into the future. You have what it takes. It's going to be okay. And so, apply that. So that's a personal story, but the business side of it as well. Identifying people who have been there, and Mark, to your point earlier, who are filled with the Spirit, who are walking with Jesus, who have that wisdom that I think only comes from God, in walking closely with Him and listening to God, and being faithful to point those things out. So Jay, to your point, it's great to have people that we meet with. It's better to have people that we meet with that will call out our blind spots, because that's what we need calling out for. We don't really need yes people in any sphere, business, private, or otherwise. We need people who are willing to hear us and then challenge us, in a spirit of humility, in the proper spirit. But we all need that.
Agreed. And this is right to the heart of a lot of what Sheep Feast is about in this discipleship arena. And so, Joshua, commendations to what you're doing, and bringing that reality to the people that you work with. Right? It's a type of discipleship. We talk about disciple my business. That's the point, right? Wherever we're placed, there's an opportunity to make disciples. It may not be breaking out the Bible and your 12-point sermon or whatever, but it's demonstrating how you actually live life in a way that honors God. And sometimes you're going to be doing that to people that may not, maybe then they're not honoring God yet, but you can show them the way. And so that's exciting to see you guys doing that as well. And so we were talking a little bit earlier about leading well in the leadership aspect of business and all that. So want to get your thoughts on that, like as you've built your career and your law firm and all that. What is one of your key insights as far as leading a team per se in a way that really sees results?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. And it kind of goes back to, for me, the whole question. Well, what is leadership? I mean, it's in some ways it's amorphous. It's been defined in a lot of different ways, and so what even is leadership? And I've heard a lot of different definitions. The one that rings true for me and what I've applied in my own life is the one by John Maxwell. So he says leadership is influence, no more, no less. So it's been said in other ways too, that leadership is having people who choose to follow you, who otherwise might choose not to follow you. So it's exerting influence. And so if I go to that definition and say leadership is influence, well then the question is, how do you influence people so that they want to follow you? And I think it goes back to being somebody who is trustworthy, that your team inherently trusts. So the definition, what that mean of trust, I always go back to is Stephen M. R. Covey's book, The Speed of Trust. I haven't read it. I'd highly recommend it. But he defines trust to be two components. One component being character, the other being competency. So in order to get people's trust, you've got to have character, you've got to be competent. So, the whole competence piece is simply doing what you say you're going to do and getting results. But the character piece, I think, is so essential. And so it's being a person of integrity, being the same person in public as you are in private. So being somebody that your team members can rely on, that this is who he says he is. He What I see is what I get, and I can rely on that. That's kind of a component of it, is being somebody that is trustworthy to my team members at any level. And I will say that, it for me, it really hasn't mattered because I haven't always been a boss. I've been an employee at times, and I think leadership is not a respecter of rank or title. I think, again, going back to the definition, we all can exert leadership by influencing others, by demonstrating care, integrity, and capability to those around us. So I look at that framework to say, being somebody of integrity and asking myself again, am I the same person in public as I am in private? And I've seen the fruits of that in some ways, where there will be people who know me in the community. They know me through my business relationships, and I had one of them who was actually a neighbor to one of our team members here, and she came up and told me and said, I was having a conversation with them, and they asked, what is it really like to work with Joshua? I'm like, oh, I guess that could be bad or good. What are you going to really say? It's kind of then the question was, is he what I think he is based upon the outward perceptions? Is he the same at when he's dealing with you in the team when things are high paced in a crisis, when you're trying to put out fires? How is he to deal with? And hopefully I am the same person. None of us are perfect, but I'm the same in every facet of life. So I look at that. Do you have trust with your team? Are you somebody of integrity?
Beautiful. One of the things that came to mind was, someone that might be starting out, right? Maybe they're coming out of college, or, maybe they just went straight to the workforce, and they may be watching this and they're like, all right, well, we all can bring influence. Like, what's a way for someone that's like, maybe they're at the the bottom of the totem pole, the first rung in the ladder, right? Are there an example that you can give of someone how they can have influence, even if they're the first guy that's been told to do something?
Yeah, that's an excellent question as well. And if we go back to that definition of endearing trust, I would say, the whole capability section of it is first, are you doing your job well? And I think, even so in the context of being a Christ follower, right, is, we are what we doing? Are we, as the handiworks of Jesus Christ, are we doing it well, wherever God has put us? And then doing above that, are we being proactive? So I think that I would say, be a person who's proactive at whatever level you're at. Don't just be reactive. And I'm here to just take whatever it is and do it well. But I'm also asking, are there other things I can do? I'm looking ahead, and I'm asking, how can I be of help to other people? How can I make life easier for the people around me? So I think of that from a capability standpoint, but then again, going back to a character standpoint of, are you somebody that is others focused? So I think that other piece of it, how do we influence other people at whatever level we're at? Are we are we focused on ourselves, and are we so tunnel visioned, or are we legitimately, when we get to the office, are we scanning? Are we looking at, how can I be the hands and feet of Jesus Christ in the context of this work to the people around me? And so you could say, even at a minimum of just again, going back to a John Maxwell quote, one of the things he talks about is just walking slowly through the aisles. And what that means is, are you noticing people? Are you noticing your team members? Again, it doesn't have to be rank. You don't have that. It doesn't matter who you're reporting to, but are you noticing them? Are you asking them and legitimately care? How are you doing? And are you noticing the things that are going on in their life? Are you making them feel seen and valued? So those two ways are, I guess, some tangible ways just to earn trust.
Yeah, perfect. It reminds me of the first point. My pastor often says, like, if you're a burger flipper, be the best burger flipper you can be, right? Wherever you're at, you have an opportunity to reflect excellence that God has shown to us. And the second part, it reminds me of Jesus, be interruptible. It seems that a lot of the miracles that Jesus was able to perform was like he was actually on the way to doing something else, but the need of others always drew him to address whatever they actually did need. And so we can reflect that too, just like you said, walking the aisles and, having an eye to see what God might do through you. And it could be a simple, hello, how are you doing? In those kind of moments as well.
Yeah,
Talking
I
about,
have something to say to that as well,
yeah,
Mark. It's being faithful over few and God promising to make you ruler over many. Like Jeshua was talking about, when you execute whatever you do with a spirit of excellence, it's amazing how these opportunities all of a sudden start opening up because people notice. Because honestly, operating with a spirit of excellence when things are good and when things are not so good is not the hallmark of how most people work, right? So
Say that
when you do
again.
that,
I
you
think you
start to
need to
stand
say
out.
that again, Jade, because I think that's the truth a lot of people don't realize. You're absolutely right.
I love it.
Mhm.
say it again. Do you remember what you said?
Yes, yes, of course. Yeah, operating with a spirit of excellence when times are good and when times are not so good is not the hallmark of how most people operate. So
Yes.
if you operate in that way, people are going to notice. I think of an example. I used to work at a plant years ago, and they were always running out of parts, and they didn't have enough stock. The people that worked in the stock department, and so I just said, "Hey, can I help?" And so I just helped out. I didn't like pulling, stocks, looking up stock parts, but I learned and I became useful. And then the joy of it came from, wow, like I was able to help someone. They're no longer out of parts anymore. And people just started to notice, and I had more opportunities to serve because I just love helping people. And did I get paid anymore? No. But did my work become more fulfilling? Yes. And when I left, I felt better about being there and what I was doing, and it was a blessing.
Yeah,
Wow.
Dr. James. Awesome. Joshua, one of the things that's come to my mind as you explained leadership and what it looks like to have not only competence but also that character piece of trust and all that, right? Um, Now, competence, I think a lot of people can wrap their head around how we get better, right? Oh, there's a test I can take, or I can go watch this YouTube video or do this course and all these things, right? I can just go out back and work on whatever it is, like practically, and build something. But the character piece, that might be a little bit more of a challenge for people to think like, well, how do I get better in the character spot if I want to become the leader that God's called me to be? So what would be something you would help someone understand like, oh yeah, this is a step in order to build your character beyond where it is? Because we're not all perfect, like that it's been said many times, and we're going to grow throughout life into these different areas. But how would you help someone in that area?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's twofold in my mind, and it goes back to we can't give what we don't have. So I always start there and say, I start every day the same way. I start my day when the rest of my family is still asleep, and I spend it with Jesus. So I'm spending time reading, praying, listening, meditating. So being filled, I've one of my favorite sayings I've heard years ago was, the only thing that I have to offer people is the fruit of the time I've spent with Jesus. I think there's a lot of truth to that. So it goes back, to, John chapter 15, verse 5, where Jesus says, I'm the branch, I'm the vine, you're the branches, you remain in me, I remain in you, apart from me, you can do nothing. So are we connected to the vine? So I think that's that vertical relationship. Are you being poured into? Um, And as a result of that, I think that, Galatians chapter 5 tells it we get the fruit of the Spirit: love, joy, peace, patience, goodness, kindness, gentleness, faithfulness, self-control. I think all of those are a result of growing closer to God and knowing Him more. So that's that vertical piece of it. And then, we talked about this a little bit more, Jay, with mentorship, but are you surrounding yourselves with the right voices, with people who know you well, and hopefully people who are headed in the same direction as you are, who are trying to grow and be people of character. Are you know you I think it's so true that we become like the people we surround ourselves with the most. So, and those directions can go both ways. So, who are you surrounding yourself with? And then the other would be the other voices. Who are you listening to? What are you reading? So, I'm a big proponent of learning, ongoing of reading, and I'll call it first principled based books that are built on enduring truth, whether or not the authors are professing Christians, or whether or not they're incorporating principles that those of us who are Christians know that it's God's truth. It's their fundamental principles, that's where they came from. You incorporate principles, foundational truths, because they work. So, what are you reading? What are you putting inside you? So that's what I would say.
That's good advice, people. Listen to Jeshua. He's dropping some truth bombs on us. We were just talking about that earlier today too. Brett Johnson, shout out. He's talking about truth bombs. You can find him on LinkedIn too. So here's another truth bomb, maybe. What does it look like to interact with clients and bring the kind of maybe spiritual leadership? How do you work that in? Like, not everything is going to be, like I said, Bible studies and all that, but how have you found ways to bring your faith into, working with clients or, just solving problems in a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, excellent question. Part of the benefit of my profession is, one of our category is counselor. Is call me counselor on the startup church, and that's one thing that our ethic rules puts on us. We are counselors. We're there to counsel our client in areas of law and provide wisdom. And so I thankfully go into every interaction knowing that um, I'm going into that room and God is going with me, regardless of where my clients find themselves. And just because I'm overt about who I am and what I stand for, doesn't mean that all of my clients are believers. And we welcome and accept everybody at every different walk of life, and hope that we can just be an influence. But at a minimum, it means that I'm going into those interactions, and ahead of time, I'm praying that God would be present and would provide His wisdom and His Spirit, and hopefully that in some way that the people I do work with and for know the love of Christ through their encounter with me in my firm. Some
Yeah.
ways though it's more tangible. I mean, if it's a believer and they're coming and talking about their business succession, and we can talk more at a high level of the why. Well, why does our business exist anyway? We're stewards of it. So if that's our mindset, then let's start from there and then see where that gets us as far as what God might call you to do with your business.
Amen to that. And you know, lawyers can have a certain reputation. I don't know if you've seen the famous Jim Carrey movie,
I'll stop
Liar,
you there
Liar,
for a
right?
second. Yes, because I used to use that clip years ago in presentations that I would do. I would have that, yeah. I know that very well. Yes.
Right. He's like, what's your dad do for a living? He's a liar. He's like, no, no, he's a lawyer. So, there's been a long standing reputation in the legal field for, and why is that so? Because at some point there's been people that have mishandled and not led in a way that's, honors the profession or God. And of course, we know that God, like you said, God is a God of justice. He's perfectly just. And so, how would you explain like the difference in like maybe what a lot of people might think, the legal profession is about, and how you guys at your firm and what you're doing really kind of rail against that kind of thought process because it's like, oh, it's cutthroat and it's the ambulance chaser or whatever. There's these different kind of things that people think of when they see the legal field. What are some things that you guys are doing to combat that type of thought in regards to the legal profession?
Yeah, and that reputation, it's rightfully earned in a lot of respects. And part of that is the fact that lawyers are in positions to make decisions for their clients. We are every day in a decision, in a position to make decisions for our clients that either more economically benefit the lawyer or benefit the client is in their best interest. And when you're in that, it is that position, it is very easy to abuse that power. And that's why it gets a bad reputation. There's a reason that the legal profession is statistically the profession that has the highest levels of addiction, alcoholism, substance abuse, divorce, depression, suicide. It's a high paced environment, the private practice of law particularly, and usually the stakes are very high for the clients, and there's a lot of pressure to perform, and there's a lot of not only that, but I think the profession itself. This probably goes into a bigger conversation about work in general. Meaning, I think if we look at work, you have people who can fall on one end of the spectrum of other. One end would be what most lawyers fall on. They place their identity in what they do, and we see that so often. It's who are you? Oh, I'm a lawyer. I identify myself with my education and what I do, and it's so wrapped up in that. And as we who are believers know, if you put your identity in anything except Jesus Christ, it's going to fail you, and there's going to be disaster. So I think part of that, you've got some of those themes. But as far as us, the refreshing thing about who we are is that we know who we are, and what we do is not what we place our identity in. It's again going back to our foundation. Our why is because we're followers of Jesus, and so we want to, and we have a distinct opportunity to be a light in the legal profession. I think it's pretty easy to do that when you operate out of a Christ-centered compass. So that means that everything decision we're making, that we can honestly tell our clients it's for their best interest, regardless of how it affects us. So being about two things, when you're about God and people, then you can really just naturally stand out in our profession.
The good news about that is that truth is for everybody. You don't have to be a lawyer if you do those things. No
Exactly.
matter, it might be another
Yes.
poorly thought of profession, uh, but it doesn't matter. Wherever we're assigned to, God's given us all different assignments and things to accomplish for His kingdom. Christ-centered, God and people-centered. It's gonna stick out. And yeah, that's good news. Dr. J, we've had Phil Trujillo on in the past, and he talked about the courts of heaven some. And so, Jeshua, I was going to ask you, is that something that you've looked into? There's a lot of legal terminology in the Bible, right? And I don't know how much you've looked into, or maybe you are really well versed in this idea of courts of heaven. I just kind of throw it over to you to get your thoughts on that and what you've heard or what you know about that.
That terminology is new to me. Courts of heaven. When I think of how we use dispute resolution in our practice, we have the opportunity. Like there's peacemaker ministries, for instance. There are alternatives that are Christ-centered ways that are more biblical to resolve disputes. But courts of heaven is not something I'm familiar with.
Well, that's cool because Dr. J would know a lot more because he helps out Phil a good bit as well. Hey, give the people a little bit, and Joshua, a little bit of the theology behind that so we can all be more informed.
Sure. The simple explanation behind course of heaven is we know that the devil, the enemy, he's the accuser, right? And so the accuser of the brethren, accuses us day and night. But we know through salvation in Jesus Christ, we're made righteous. So the course of heaven is not really a place, but it's the position that we take, knowing that if, Satan has every right to accuse us because outside of Christ, we're guilty. But we can go to the Father, right? We can go to God, and we know that He is faithful and just to forgive us of all of our sins. And so that's all it is at the end of the day, understanding the protocol of heaven and operating in that way, because the legal terminology is just, God being the ultimate judge. We have, the chief enemy, but like trying to prosecute us day in and day out. So that's the gist of it.
Oh, I love that. Yes, in the what comes very clear in that is the justice aspect of God, because thankfully Jesus died for my sins. It would be unjust for God to make us pay that penalty twice, right? That
Amen.
Jesus took that for us. So God is just. He's a just judge.
Yeah. Yeah. The cool thing about this thought process, talking about you're in the everyday natural world, doing legal work, but there are things in the spiritual realm that could be, coming against us in some form or fashion. Of course, we pray and all that, but just as Jay was explaining, there's a way that can help us going to get through. Maybe there's something that we have done that, we need to repent of and all that. And that's kind of where that comes in. Like, it has been done, but if we go out and keep committing the crime, you're going to have to do the time. So, but Jesus still has paid for it, and so that's the exciting part of what God has provided for us. There is a way forward, even if we did mess up one or two times or
Amen.
777 times, whatever it was that Jesus talked
So
about.
Yep.
So yeah, very cool. Well, I'm glad that we could give you a little bit more things to think about in your law firm. Maybe you can open up a new division. Um,
Oh, I
um,
appreciate that. Thank you.
yeah, yeah. And I see here Luke dropped a comment in the uh, comment section here. He says, "Thank you for your integrity and courage in upholding your values and faith within this generation. From the perspective of a person of faith, how do you perceive the current developments with the justice and legal sectors, both nationally and globally?" That's the first question. Like, how would you address that first part?
Hmm. I think that there is an opportunity to be to shine. I really do. I'm thankful for some of the organizations out there. So I think, for instance, the Alliance Defending Freedom, they're a Christian civil liberties organization, where fundamental religious rights are being infringed upon. They will come in and they will stand on our Constitution and those protections and defend it. And they're very successful. So I think our world has fallen and it's dark, but I don't think that I'm not pessimistic. I think that there is a lot of good people and organizations who are standing on truth and doing good work in the justice arena.
Yeah, follow up to that was, what can individuals without a legal background do to actively uphold truth and align their actions with ethical and biblical principles, whatever the opposition?
Wow. Yeah, I think it goes back to where you planted, who's pouring into you. It's again, for all of us in whatever our sphere of life, we don't have we only we can only give what we have put in us. And so if we aren't being regularly fed by Christ and good group of believers, I don't think we can produce fruit. So who's pouring into you?
Yeah, amen to that. The whole idea of iron sharpening iron, and we want those that have been tested by the fire that come through and shine bright. And those are the folks that we can align with. Joshua, your I know you people can find you on LinkedIn. What other places can they get a hold of what you're doing? And if they need legal advice and help in that arena, where can they go?
Yeah, LinkedIn is the best way for now because again, we're relaunching and so we'll have new social media in the new year. But my LinkedIn page will stay the same. So please contact me on LinkedIn. I'm also on X, not as active on X or Twitter, but LinkedIn for sure is the best way.
Very good. So look up Jeshua Lauka and you can get help from him there. And so you said January, we are leaning towards that as we wait for that launch. Do you guys have a date yet, or you just is that kind of fluid right now?
It's going to be effective January 1.
Okay,
So
so you
the company changing the signs and the website and the PR company, it's happening January 1, whether we're ready or not.
I hear you. Okay, so keep your eye out for the 1st of January, new year, new you, Joshua. Not literally, because you're already a new creation, and that's exciting. Um, so with that being said, obviously we know there's a shift there, just branding wise and kind of like what you're doing there. But I like to ask people as we kind of wrap up this year and our time together right now. What are you looking to see in 2026? What are you believing for? What do you think God's going to be doing? Maybe not just in your life and in your firm, but what is he doing in 2026 that you kind of feel and see and that we should be on the lookout for?
Now that's a good question, and as somebody who is a internal processor and likes to think about big questions, I put on the spot. I'm not sure. What I would say is there is a large opportunity for Jesus followers to be a light in our world. And we've got a very unique, we're at such a unique time where we have people who are very pitted against each other. There's a lot of hostility. And I think within that, there are groups who I think it's easy to stay comfortable in groups. And I think there's a lot of opportunity to live in the tension that we as Christ followers are called, and that's to engage people and be light. So I'm looking for that in the new year more and more for believers to engage others, to be a light, to love God, love people in every sphere. So that's what I'm looking forward to 2026.
Yeah, that was great. Even though we hit you on the spot, I love that, and I wholeheartedly agree. The conversation has really kind of centered around this opportunity to be a light in the darkness through the way that wherever we're at. And so, Joshua, once again, we're super thankful that you're doing that in the legal field. We need it. I know a handful of other strong believers that are practicing and doing the great things. So, the more, the merrier, and the better all the way around. As we kind of wrap up our time today, what do you have any kind of parting thoughts for the folks, and what would you have to say to them?
Um, I'm a big proponent of keeping the main thing the main thing. There's so much noise out there. There are so many distractions. And we, if we fix our eyes on Jesus Christ, keep that main thing the main thing, you know, what is it, Matthew 6:33? Seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these other things will be taken care of and added to you as well. So keep the main thing the main thing. And the main thing is Jesus.
Now, that's a good word, Dr. J. Jesus is the reason for the season, by the way. If you haven't heard that one, I just came up with that actually. Just thought off the top of my head. Uh, no, it's been wonderful to have you, Joshua. And like you said, we're going to be keeping an eye on the launch and excited for you and just blessings on you and your firm and those that you work with, and not only on your team, but clients that you continue to bring the wisdom of God into that. And you'll see great results across the board. And yeah, Anna says thank you, and that was so inspiring, and I agree. All right, everybody, it's been great to be together once again here today. And Joshua, blessings on you. And until next time, we'll see y'all later.
Thank you.